The thoughts for me are often intrusive. They bust in like the Kool-Aid man, very violent, knocking down a wall. Not great. For me, that can be jarring. Like sometimes it is almost surprising. I have to make sure that my emotional response to it, I kind of pause and I regulate and I'm like, is that true?
Welcome to the first ever episode of Authenticity. I'm Heather Bell, and this is my guest, Anna Owens.
Hey, Heather. Thanks for having me.
Well, I'm glad you're here. We have kind of, over the last couple months, we've just had some great conversations. And we just went away from those conversations going, hey, a lot of people could benefit from these because we've benefited from these conversations. What brought us together initially was I was walking through something. Really wanted the Lord to help me kind of overcome just some thoughts I had about myself that weren't so great on a daily basis. I'm sure we can all, relate to that. But for me, it was just every day feeling insecure about certain things, body image being a major one. It is for a lot of people, but other stuff, not just body image, it's a lot of stuff. And I was praying about it and did not even know you.
Yeah.
Did not really know you other than this person I knew of growing up.
Right.
And then we also attend church together, but did not know you. But you kept coming to mind. And I'm like, Lord, that would be so weird to call somebody up and say, hey, do you want to get together for a conversation about this specific subject? I mean, how do you even do that?
That's brave. You were brave.
So I did, I don't know. I think I texted you first and said, hey, and I want to run something by you, playing it completely
you wanted a
safe.
Phone call, which is not what millennials do. So
I already gave away my age by saying, hey, can I call you?
Yeah. I was like, oh, no, we can't do that.
But,
Yeah.
And so immediately when I shared what I had been walking through and why I was contacting you, you just kind of said.
It was almost funny because you were talking to me and it was almost like you didn't want to say it. I think you led with maybe trying to talk about creative things and because I'm a painter. And then you were like, there's also this other thing. and I was like, and then the other thing, which was working through body image and how the Lord sees us, was the thing that I latched onto. I was like, hey, I like that thing. I have a lot that I've dealt with in my own life.
Well, you said, you've come to the right place.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Yeah.
And I love that. I love that because there was trepidation in ever picking up the phone and contacting you. And then that immediate moment where you're like, no, you've come to the right place. And I'm like, thank you, Lord, for doing this, whatever you're doing. Body images came from something we could both agree on. Right. We grew up, I was more immersed in the 90s era. It's one of those in Texas and one of those not.
Oh, yeah.
We all know what I'm trying to say. And you just kind of on the tail end of it.
Yeah, I got the early aughts for sure.
Yes, but we agreed it was just monumental in how it shaped how we view ourselves.
Right.
And for those of you that are not familiar, 90s was very much, can you be so thin that your bones stick out? Your collarbone, they expected your hip bones to stick out.
Right.
It was just starve yourself. Right. No matter what size God intended you to be, this is where you need to get. And it was everywhere. It was, it was on every commercial talking about dieting. It was, especially 90s. We talked about 90s TV.
Especially someone who grew up in a larger body. It was, I saw people who looked like me being people who were not taken seriously or were tended to be the butt of jokes.
They were the comedic relief.
They were the comedic relief.
Yeah.
And they were, it was and so I always thought oh, if I'm my size, this is how people see me. And honestly, that happened a lot in general. It was either adults treating me a specific way or kids treating me a specific way or peers. And so, seeing that in media and in movies, and then seeing that the person who was the protagonist was always thin, very thin and beautiful, was really, really, it informs how you think about yourself, especially when you're young.
Well, for me, it was people that had the average size body I had being actually held up publicly on the show to be critiqued and said, this part is wrong and this part is wrong and you're fat.
Right.
You know, and so it was this, it just put into me at a very young age that just having a regular average body is obesity.
Yeah.
You know, so we've shared about that, and we had different experiences through that. But overall, we both walked away saying, if you're not this exact shape, size, emaciated, then you are unhealthy, you are unwanted, you are unattractive, and you're not taken seriously. And so for me, I compounded that with going through some abuse, you know, as a teen, just sexual abuse, and then going on to get pregnant as a teen. And for me, it became, how small can I shrink that nobody can see me to hurt me, you know? And so for me, it was now became a more of a traumatic, a trauma-based issue. And then we have cultural issue, peer issue, and it's just coming from everywhere in my formative years of trying to figure out who am I.
Right.
And for you, it was a little bit different.
Yeah. I mean, I think everyone, shame is shame pretty well. But it was, for me, it was like, oh, I mean, I experienced this with actual interactions with people like teachers in my school or administration, and then also my peers. It was just like, you are less than worthy to have like just any kind of real conversation. Now, what I didn't know at the time, I ended up like losing quite a bit of weight, and then ended up being what I guess traditionally the body that was acceptable at the time. And then it turns out, like, sure, people listen to you better, but then they want something from you a lot of the time. And so that's how that experience shaped me. And I also had, unfortunately, I think I had a mother who was doing her best, but still struggled. And so there was critiques also at home, on her own body and also on mine. And so that was difficult to be, put on a diet at 8 years old. And so that's really, really hard. And that kind of informs how you move through the world.
At 8 years old.
Yeah.
And then you go into, the I think 14 and 15 is such a prominent age, for figuring out or you start to say, what am I supposed to look like? And so you'd already gone through several years, and then now you're reaching that. Right. And I want to back up just a little bit. You were saying, I lost the weight, and then people want something from you. Yeah. It's very strange and difficult when you think, if I just obtain this one goal, all of these issues that I've been having are going to go away. Right. And you realize there's just another
It's just a different set of issues. Yeah.
So it's which then leads into how do we ever get comfortable with whatever this is at any given day?
Right. Because if it's never going to be, in quote, good enough, like how are we ever supposed to make our peace with it?
So that's really just the meat of the conversations we've been having. Right. We shared, hey, this is how we got here. Right. Which, summing that up in just a few minutes, when it's years of pain and things that we're walking through. One of the things that we haven't touched on yet is both of us had experience, because we both had eating disorders that we developed from this. Mine was a 10-year one. Yeah. And so we both were sharing our experiences with what that looked like for each of us. And for me, it was, going to try to go to the groups they'd have, like these support groups, and being shamed for being there, because everybody there might be larger than I was at that time, because I was starving myself down to nothing. That's why I was there. And I had somebody say to me, why are you here?
Why are you here?
You just make us look bad. You just, if what you're doing is working, why are you here? Right. And so it was a time where I desperately needed help. Right. I desperately needed, I put my mom through so much. My mom would make special food for me just to try to get me to eat. My mom would try to get me to counseling. I dealt with this in my teen years. I dealt with this through some of my 20s, when I even was walking into marriage and various things. And I just so wanted help.
Right.
But no matter where I turned, it seemed like the answer would always be, you're either too much, or, you're not enough.
Right.
And you still go home with, we're right back to where we were. Whatever this is, how do we get okay with it?
I remember talking to one adult in particular, someone I'd really trusted, and I was like, I'm dealing with this eating disorder. And their response was, well, you look really good. And that was so painful, because that's what I was trying to be like, this is what I'm, and they were like, wow, it's working.
Well, it's kind of like you're saying, I don't want to do this anymore. I need help. And somebody's saying, oh, but keep on doing it.
Yeah, exactly. And so that was really, really, hard, because it was, that's exactly what I wanted, was like, oh, I want release from this, because this is one, I remember thinking, I was like, this is taking up so much of my mental space. And I just want to be told that, like, I'm okay as I am. And what was difficult is that I was coming from professing Christians too. And so to be told that I was fearfully and wonderfully made, but only
you're fearfully and wonderfully made, but keep doing whatever you're doing, because it's making you appear to be fearfully and wonderfully made.
Exactly. Yeah. And so that was just, that was really, really damaging for a really, really long time.
So you just said, I just wanted somebody to say, I'm okay the way I am.
Yeah.
And I think that's the absolute.
Yeah.
If we summarize anything we were trying to say today, from where we've gone now to where we're going, that's it right there, is that we're all just, am I okay the way I am?
Without changing at all. Yeah.
And so for me personally, that's what led me to try to, to reach out to you. As I was walking through this thing of, I'm tired of this taking up my mental space. And right now I want to say, we've put this in this little box of body image and physical appearance. But in reality, it's all aspects of me. My personality, my capabilities, my giftings, my parenting, my abilities as a wife, whatever it is every single moment. And there's just a thing I'm supposed to be fixing and improving, or am I just okay? And I get that we need growth. And I get that God is continuing to work on us, and we submit to Him, and He's going to continue to sanctify us, and we're going to, over and over, we're made holier in this journey. But is there ever just a moment where we just get to rest, and I'm okay the way I am?
Yeah.
And we've also, this very easily could be boxed in as a women's issue,
right?
But it's not.
No.
This is, prevalent, no matter female, male.
Yeah.
That's the question. Am I okay the way I am?
Yeah.
Am I enough?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
So I, walking through that journey, was just like, Lord, here I am again saying, I don't want to do this anymore. I've had other things in my life. I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to waste any more mental space, time of my day, energy, all of this stuff, trying to overcome the same thought pattern.
Right.
You wake up in the morning and you have things to do, but that thought is there of, already, am I going to be enough? Already, am I going to be accepted? Already, am I, attractive enough? Am I thin enough? Am I fit enough? Am I healthy enough? Just enough.
Yeah.
But for you, what is that voice? For me, it's the mornings. I don't know when it hits for other people. For me, it is in the morning, the night before I go to bed.
Right.
I have anticipation about things I have the next day.
Yeah.
They're actually good things. I'm like, oh, that's going to be a great day.
Yeah.
Wake up in the morning and there's that onslaught
of
that, about when I, go to get ready, go to prepare things to get out the door. It's like just
like a loop.
Yeah. So for you, when and what comes?
That probably, thank the Lord, it doesn't happen to me nearly as often as it did before. But for me, it really happens in times of deep stress and anxiety. So if there's a lot going on, I deal with some anxiety. Thank the Lord for Wellbutrin. It's coming in hot these days. But thankfully, and that's helped honestly.
Well, it's like if your body doesn't make it store-bought, it's fine.
Yes, exactly that. And praise God, because it has been so helpful to keep me from the moments that instigated those thoughts.
Yeah.
And so So I don't deal with it as much anymore. But it really came on strong in really stressful times. And it was a way, honestly, probably for my brain trying to get control of the situation. And so that was when it would really immediately go to what was familiar for control, which was oftentimes eating disorders. And so that's when it really hits me, is when I'm in moments of deep stress. And then it's like, I'm like, if I catch like, corner of my eye in my bathroom mirror, I'm like, wow, that's a lot going on. Like, we've got a lot going on already. And so for me, it shows up in very stressful times when I feel out of control. It's something that I'm honestly often trying to control. And then it comes up in like not feeling enough often. So that's most when it comes on. It's not necessarily daily, but if there's ever a time where there's a lot going on in our lives, that's when it wants to sneak
up. And as
up.
you're saying that, I'll modify a little bit. It is this kind of the same. It's in seasons. It's not like every single day of my life I wake up this way.
Right.
But I will go through seasons where it is just that loud voice of you're not enough in some way, and fill in the blank due to that season, what it is. It may be seasons where my house feels completely like we're going through a remodel right now. It is very easy for me to slip into this overwhelmed, you're not enough. Why don't you have this done already? When it's times when there's seasons where I can't get to the gym as often. I have other responsibilities, yay to people that manage to do all of that. I mean, really, I don't mean that sarcastically. That's wonderful, that's incredible. I have not managed to figure that all out. And then that'll be the season where it hits of the voice about my body. It's not enough. You're not doing enough. You should be doing this better. It can be, you go through things with your parenting, and your marriage will go through seasons. And that's when so it's like when we're feeling weak in that area. And that comes in. And so lately, maybe the last year, I say lately, recently, I realized in our marriage we need a battle plan. So before we're in that moment, that we already have a battle plan of how we're going to handle that moment. So for instance, a battle plan for me is instead, if there's the opportunity for offense to come against my husband, or there's something that's bothering me about my husband, my battle plan is I take it to the Lord first every single time. I do not go to my husband about it without going to the Lord first. If a lot of times that just takes care of it and I release it. If there's still something hanging on, then I'm going to go to my husband in the right time. You don't do that after a 14-hour shift or something, but in the right time with some wisdom, I'm going to take it to him. If I'm unable to communicate well with him, if something just doesn't go right, I'm going to go to somebody who's entrusted to both of us to talk about it. Somebody we both have agreed this is who we can go to in those moments. So just saying there's a battle plan. So in those, it's going to come. We're going to act like it's going to come. And let's go ahead and be prepared. Realizing I've had the most successful friendships in this season because we have a battle plan. If I get offended, which is my responsibility, that's never anybody else's fault. If I get offended, that is my responsibility. I've taken on to something. But if something bothers me or something you said hurt my feelings, I'm going to come to you about it. Immediately. I'm not going to sit on it. I'm not going to guess that I value you enough that, again, I skip that step. I go to the Lord first. That's always the first step in the battle plan. But I'm going to go to you, and I value our friendship. So in our discussions, it's like there needs to be a battle plan because we know the thoughts are going to come. We're going to have seasons where we feel pretty beat up. We absolutely know they're going to come. Let's not act like they're not. We both have agreed. We've worked through a whole lot. There's been counseling. There's been medication at times. There's been, healing. There's been so much that has happened that I'm in no way living at the life I lived at one time where this was like a continual onslaught. But now in the weak times, this is where it comes in. And so I'm going to act like it's going to come in. And I'm going to get a battle plan. And do you think you've been operating with a battle plan all this time and maybe just not named it? Or is this a new concept for you?
That's a great question. I think it has been, my tactics have recently been, probably within the last year, honestly, have been stopping because the thoughts for me are often intrusive. They bust in like the Kool-Aid man, very violent, knocking down a wall, not great. And so it's really that for me that can be jarring. Like sometimes it is almost surprising how much they can kind of come in. And so I have to make sure that my emotional response to it, I kind of pause and I regulate and I'm like, is that true? Like a lot of times I have to ask like, is that true? No, it's not. That's not true. What is true? And then I like repeat it back to myself, which is oftentimes that you're fearfully and wonderfully made. And that like you are loved by your father. And also I have a fantastic husband. Like, so loved by my husband. So that's been, and he's been, I'm not going to lie, very instrumental in how I've come to see myself. Having someone who loves you unconditionally is so true. Best medication there is probably. So that's kind of been my tactic, is a lot of self-talk, a lot of asking, is this true? No, then what is true?
I think it's very powerful to talk back at the thing that's talking at you.
Yeah.
You know, instead of just take it
out
all
loud
in,
sometimes. Yeah.
Talk back. So fearfully and wonderfully made is such a wonderful thing that we've heard our entire lives.
Right.
And we can repeat it back to anybody else and we can say it about them. But when it's time for us to look at ourselves in any capacity, like we just discussed, and say, I am fearfully and wonderfully made. I was knit together by my creator, who I've professed makes no mistakes. He is perfect. And yet I'm fearfully, this is fearfully. This is what is it.
Yes. Is it? Yes.
Yes. And so trying to not only grasp fearfully and wonderfully made, but walk like it and talk like it and carry the confidence of the Almighty made me, knit me together, broke the mold. Nobody liked me. He knows what he's doing. He is light. He is truth, you know, and here we are on a regular basis going, but you messed up on this, but you could have done this a little bit better. But if you had just done this, this would be easier for me. And that's led me on a journey to, how do I get comfortable with this? How do I value this as much as he does? Me. I keep saying this. How do I value me? How am I not only like, how do I go, oh, look what you did? How am I walking around? Like, look what you did, Lord. Good job, Lord. You know, that seems so far-fetched. Like, look at your handiwork. Look at this. I know. But like, imagine if we walked around with that kind of
like pep in your step.
That's good. That is a great synonym for confident. Got a little pep step. And one of my questions on that was like, Lord, how do I get comfortable when every day, especially, you know, as a female, every single day my body changes. It's not once ever the same from day to day. And I don't know, what are your thoughts on that?
Like how do I approach just living in a body that decides what it wants to do every day? In the context of the Lord
of Lord, you know what you're doing, but
do you though?
Do you? But it's like if we as a female change every single day, and our bodies are the way our body works, the way it appears, it is a change every single day. So to me, it doesn't seem insurmountable to say I need to learn how to be fearfully and wonderfully made if we were the same every day.
I see. And then but we change in seasons and we change literally every day. I mean, I think I approach it probably the same. Like, I mean, the amount of self-talk I have to do probably varies day to day, but it's still the self-talk I need to do. And so I would say that I probably I don't necessarily, there are some days that I don't think I have to be like, I don't know if I necessarily need that pep in my step every day. I think there are times where I'm like, Lord, I know that it's true in my head. Do I feel it? No. Do I know that like there's a day that I'm going to be with you and hopefully my emotions will finally line up with what I know is true? So I'm just going to hold on to the hope of my future home with you, where I also feel at home in my body. And so some days I do accept that I may not feel at home in my body today.
Well, for me, it was in looking at the battle plan of how do I deal with this.
Right.
I'm going to include the fact that I am not dealing with the same me every single day, if that makes sense. My body is going to be changing. My emotions change. I'm not going to blame it on the hormones, but they matter. They do affect us.
They come on in.
So in my battle plan, I need to look at it and say, if I'm ever changing, then what is not ever changing that I can rely on?
Right.
And so I was so excited the other day when I felt like, the Holy Spirit showed me a way to name this battle plan, a way to line it out, that maybe it would work for other people. Now, neither one of us have some cookie cutter journey in this. We both have experienced it in different ways.
Yeah.
But my hope is that if this is kind of like the Lord's instruction in his word, then anybody can grab a hold of that instruction and apply it the way that it applies to their, specific battle. And the first thing he showed me, which is, some of these are obvious, of course, is, to seek him.
Yeah.
So if it's that first thing in the morning, or if you know that your weakest time is going on and you're really being hit and you're overloaded and you're stressed, I would say seek him, spend more time seeking him than to the level that your battle is going on, to the level that the intrusive thoughts are hitting, increase, your time with him and seek him, and it's in Jeremiah 29:11 is always, the Lord says, I know the thoughts I have for you. They're of good, they're of peace, they're not of evil. But people, a lot of times just stop there instead of going on to the rest of it, which is, it says, call on me. It's like, call upon me, seek me, I will listen to you, and I will answer you when you seek me with all your heart. And in those times, I am really paying more attention to those voices.
Oh, yeah.
Than I am stopping and saying, if you know your thoughts for me, how about I quit paying attention to the thoughts that I'm having of me, and I go listen to what your thoughts
I feel like the enemy, I feel like the enemy is, I just describe my thoughts as a Kool-Aid man, and I really do feel like that.
Is that your picture of the enemy?
It's just big and red.
Great?
Yeah, no, it's red. It's the weird cherry flavor for sure. And so, but how the Holy Spirit is, it's described as a still small voice, right? Which means, I think someone told me once is when you're close to someone, you don't need to yell.
Yeah.
And so that's why it's quieter. The Lord is so close to us, but I will say those thoughts are really loud.
They're so loud and persistent.
Persistent, and then also confirmed by your culture around you. And so it's just, there's all these different messages that you get that you have to really do, be extremely intentional to go, oh boy, no. And then pursue that still small voice.
Well, this past Sunday, our pastor said he envisions an actual stop sign in his mind.
Yes, yeah.
And that actually is beneficial to me this week. Yeah. I regularly would be like, stop it, Heather Nicole. I tell myself, I talk to myself, but this time I actually pictured that stop sign. We're just not going here. Yeah. And, over the years, that is something that has been developed. That ability to speak to myself, no, that's not happening. Right. Or another little tool that I use is read a book. I wish I could remember what it was. But they were simply talking about, he named the voice in his head Fred. So anytime Fred was talking to him, he could be like, that's not me. Shut up, Fred. So I called mine Becky. I'm like, that's enough, Becky. We don't need to hear from you today, Becky. Some people might think that sounds a little insane, but it works so much when you don't accept that this is your own thoughts, that you have to act like they're true, that it's just something separate from you, that, we're just going to stop and not pay attention to that. So for me, it's seek him more intentionally, call him, say, Lord, I'm not doing well with my thoughts, but you said that you know the thoughts you have for me. And I'd really rather hear those, right now. And then the next step is suit up, put on that armor. And,
the full armor.
The
of God.
full armor. And it's, put on the belt of truth, the shield of faith, wrap that peace around your feet. So wherever you go, there's peace, the breastplate of righteousness, put all of this on. And it's amazing to me when I actually humble myself and do that verbally, because you can feel a little like, okay, Lord, is this really necessary?
Yeah.
But after I've sought him and I've heard what he has to say, and then I put this armor on verbally, feeling a little corny, but I'm putting this on.
Yeah.
There's not a whole lot that's still speaking to me after all this.
Absolutely.
So I've shared with you my little playground analogy.
It's great.
That's helped so much. And I want to share this and then I want to hear from you. For me, I imagine that I am like this teacher on a playground with my little whistle, around my neck, and all the kids are out playing their merry-go-rounds and swing sets, and they're going down slides, and they're all yelling. So all these children are out running around, but these children are those thoughts and my emotions and various things. Okay, running around, playing on a playground, being loud, acting. It's just chaos. So you've got anger going around on the merry-go-round, just round and round, or offense and bitterness, just round and round and round. I've got fear swinging from the monkey bars. I have, all this stuff, those body image issues, whatever, which would be just, let's just call it insecurities, just all this running around. Yeah. And what I see that as is I, by the Holy Spirit, have the ability to have self-control. It's a fruit of the Spirit, self-control. So I can say to each one of those, you better line up. It's time to come on. Yeah. Recess is over. Playtime is over.
I agree.
Come line up. Offense, you've been playing too long. It's time to line up. Anger, that's covering up something. It doesn't even, it's time to line up.
Yeah.
And so walking through that next. So we've sought the Lord, we've suited up, and now we're sorting.
Right.
We are sorting which emotions or whatever's going on inside of me that I can tell to line up. And it under my authority that the Lord has given me, it goes and lines up. But you had an interesting question for me when I shared that with you.
Right. Which was oftentimes, or at least some of my therapist, counselor friends might say, like, well, when you feel an emotion, generally it's indicating something. So if your first response is like, oh, no, get in line. We don't need to be angry. We don't need to be offended or sad or whatever. And like, are you ever nervous about when you're telling your emotions to line up, that you're not curious about why they're out there playing?
Well, it's for me.
Yeah.
If I get offended at somebody in traffic or something,
Sure.
And I tell that to line up.
Yes.
Just stop it, line up.
Yeah.
Okay. But what about the ones so I don't think we should dismiss every emotion, every feeling. But there's some that do not need my attention. And I need to tell those just to line up. There are some that can just pop back up sometimes that are a little bit triggered, that have been healed. And I know they're healed, and I've walked through that. I'm like, that's old stuff. Just line up. We've already done this. We've done the work.
Right.
We've sat with that before. But I think what you were asking me that one day was, what do you do about the ones that won't line up?
Oh, yeah.
That are still sitting there.
Yeah.
And I think those are the ones that are just like a child that was playing on the playground and didn't want to come in. Like, you could blow that whistle time and time again, and they're just they're not listening to you. They're continuing on. They're going down that slide over and over again.
Yeah.
And you, as a teacher, I would go over and get down on their level and say, what's going on?
Right.
And that's those things in my mind, the sorting.
Right.
You are sorting which ones will just line up and go. You can go about your day. These just don't need more of my attention. So those intrusive thoughts that we've been talking about that make us question, are we fearfully and wonderfully made? Those things that come into our mind, are there some that we can just be like, we've been here before and we have healed from this. This is old news. Yeah. This is just, you're having a bad body day due to just walking in a woman's body sometimes that feels a little out of control.
Right.
Which is, I'm not going to let that ruin my day. Go line up. But what about that stuff that's still out there playing and not listening?
Right.
Going over to it and bending down and getting on its eye level and going, we're going to sit here for a minute until we figure out
why you're not coming in.
Why you're not lining up. If the Holy Spirit's given me that authority and you're not submitting to this authority, what's going on? What's there? And I don't know for you, what could you think of something that would be what's still there? Maybe something that you're healed from now, but maybe something you're walking through. I
like
don't know.
A particular emotion that likes to play longer than it should.
Anything, emotion or
I mean, anger is a big one for me. That will that one likes to just stay out there on the swings, just doing its thing. And like I fully recognize that it has no business being there. It is a kind of a tiny little buzz beneath the surface always that has no business being around. But it is the one that I often have to go like, hey, what are you doing here? And why are you not coming in? Like, and sometimes it's really practical stuff like, oh, you just have not slept, but it is the one that is the most frequent out and about on that playground, that doesn't want to come in. And so, approaching it with curiosity first has been helpful, because I used to go into shame spirals really bad. Like, I can't believe you're angry for this thing. Like, why would you or sad or insecure, because shame would be the loudest voice, and then it would spiral really quickly. And so I have to be really, really gentle with my inner voice, or I've learned to become more gentle with my inner voice, because it can trigger some shame if I get real intense about it sometimes. And so my approach to anger or to any emotion that's going on too long is to approach it with curiosity first and go, hey, what you doing out here? Like,
and I think that's so better, because picture the teacher that goes out there and go, are you not listening to me?
Right.
Why aren't you? I said, line up.
Yeah.
And it's just this condemnation and this harshness. And it's like, and even if they do eventually submit,
right.
That's it's not, I guarantee it's going to happen another day.
Precisely.
You're going to see it again. It's probably going to be amped.
Yes. Oh yeah. It's going to be worse.
But instead to be the curious, like go out and say, hey, why aren't you lining up? Is there a reason you're still hanging out here? Is there,
Yeah. Did you not hear the whistle?
Yeah. And you just said something a second ago that is so true. Maybe you just need a nap.
Yeah.
It may just not line up. We can over spiritualize. We can over analyze.
Right.
Maybe you just
need a nap.
Just need a nap,
Maybe a snack.
And it was kind of like, Elijah, I'm dying. I want to die. And the Lord's like, just take a nap. And on those days, that's what's floating around on that playground. I just want to die. I can't do this anymore. And it's just like, oh, maybe I just need some food.
Just some sleep and some dinner.
And so that's the thing. Just because it's still sitting out there, I don't think we have to automatically assume it's this horrendous thing that's going to take. Because walking through years of healing and a lot of time with the Lord and a lot of counseling and various things, sometimes you don't want to go look at something else because you're like, oh, that may take all that again. Right. And you're like, I'm not ready to sign. I don't have the capacity. I don't have the,
the bandwidth.
And so I think that's also, don't make it catastrophic in your mind. It may just really be, hey, I need to check myself and realize you need a nap. Sometimes I need a good, hang out with a friend.
Oh yeah.
And you know what I'm saying? But just like eat something that makes me happy, hang out with some friends and laugh. Yeah. And I discover the next day, wow, I wake up and the voice isn't there.
Right.
It's been replaced by so much good.
Right.
Okay. So after we sort it out, okay. There is a surrender that's happening in the process. Yeah. So if you haven't noticed, it's all these S words that'll help you remember. It's like it's seek and suit up and sort. And then now we're at surrender. Yeah. And this to me is just where the fearfully and wonderfully made comes in again. I'm going to surrender my idea of what fearfully and wonderfully made would look like.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
And I'm going to surrender that. And I'm going to embrace what you designed.
Yeah.
And, I can't imagine, I'm getting closer day by day, but I can't imagine what it would fully look like to have all this free time if I just accepted this.
Yeah.
If I just got it. This was, this is what you had in mind.
Yeah. When you
You
made me,
know,
yeah.
what would it look like if I wasn't paying attention to what culture said? What if what would it look like if I wasn't paying attention to the thoughts that come? What if whatever fill in the blank, what would that look like if I was truly walking freely in?
Right.
This was by your design.
Oh man. Happier, less, certainly we would have so much more mental space. It'd be so great.
Well, think about it, the capacity to love others.
Oh,
because
a
lot of times we're seeing them through our own junk.
Right.
But if I just saw them like, I'm good. So whatever he made you to be, that's fabulous. There's no comparison. There's no trying to find my value by basing it off of what somebody else is or is not.
Well, I completely, and that's bringing up things for me. I'm like, oh, how many times have I been reluctant to have someone over to my house because I thought it was dirty, that kind of level of like, oh, what's hindering me from actually reaching out? And I mean, there were times, and like, hesitate to even say it because it's mostly sad, but there were like altar calls for not necessarily salvation, but just like big things for prayer that I like didn't go up knowing I should have, because I was thinking about my body and I was thinking about what people would think. And that's, I mean, I think everyone struggles with what will people think of me when it comes to like a public display of faith or of needing prayer or just need. Everyone struggles with that. So that doesn't even necessarily have to do with body image stuff, but like that did hold me back.
But it's for you, it's like, what will I look like when I'm up there?
Yes,
exactly. How will I appear physically to other people? That tells you how deeply this is been ingrained.
Exactly. Yeah. And that it would keep me from something that the Lord had for me.
Well, and you saying that is opening a door to a whole nother thought. How many things are we being kept from?
Right.
For God's glory.
Yeah.
For loving others, for kingdom work, for, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And if you can't see in that, I'm not going to blame everything on the enemy and Satan. I'm not going to be like, oh, he's doing all this.
Yeah.
But what a great plan.
Yeah.
If I'm going to hit you right where I could paralyze you.
Right.
Like you mentioned the home being dirty.
Yeah.
I actually, at lunch with the person today, having the same conversation, we were sharing that we both struggle with that. Oh, yeah. Is it dirty? Is it not put together? Is it decorated right? Is it, it's whatever it is.
Right.
That's keeping me from opening my home to love. And I actually love opening my home.
Right. Right. Me too.
Like this is even keeping me from practicing that gift that the Lord has put in me of hospitality.
Right.
So that actually makes me not even have the joy that comes from that. So it's like a double whammy.
Yeah.
It's
absolutely.
It's just crazy. And so the surrendering, the verse that came to mind when I was thinking about surrendering was, it's in Matthew 16, talking about, take up your cross and follow me. And what that's really saying is take up your death. And this just led me down a thought pattern of the thoughts that I have of myself kind of need to be put to death. They've become an idol. This image of trying to obtain an image of what I think. Now, what I think has been influenced by so many things.
Right.
But trying to maintain an image of what I think, Heather Bell is supposed to be.
Yeah.
If it is taking up more space in my head and my heart and my energy than the Lord has, then we can just go ahead and name that an idol.
Yeah.
So on one hand, we can say we feel a little bit, maybe, I don't know, this isn't my favorite word. I'm trying to think of another one real quick, but I'm victimized.
Right. Oh no, that's good.
I feel victimized. I've been influenced by the culture. I've been doing all this stuff. I've been exposed to all these things. I have been abused. That we can make it logical.
Right.
That I would struggle with some intrusive thoughts in this area and they could be paralyzing. I mean, who's going to blame me for that after what I've been through?
Right.
But now I've taken all that and I've grabbed hold of it to the degree that I have now set it higher than what the Lord says about me or what his word says. And so that's an idol.
Yeah.
It's this thing of I actually have to repent. I actually have to say, I'm going to lay that idol down. I'm so sorry, Lord, that I put what I think that I should be above you. And today in the conversation, it was even, I'm realizing I'm so sorry that I have put embarrassment. What are we going to call it about my home?
Right.
Over what you have called me to do.
And yeah, you with your perfect judgment asked me to do something, and I was like, but you don't mean it if like I haven't dusted, right? Like,
or that laundry pile.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because nobody else has laundry piles.
Right.
And I have never once ever gone to somebody else's house.
Yeah.
And ever looked at their house or their state of their housekeeping or, whatever. I'm like, oh, I get to be with you.
Exactly. I've never cared about anyone's home ever.
No,
never.
I'm just
once.
like, oh, yay, I'm not in my home.
Yeah.
Doing my dishes. I don't care if you've done yours or not. I don't have to look at mine.
Exactly.
And I just, and in those moments, as this has been heavy on my mind the last few weeks, I've been paying attention to when are the moments that I forget about these things about myself that I don't like.
Ooh,
when do they not even cross my mind?
Yeah.
And I find it's when I'm laughing with a friend or when I'm visiting somebody, like when they've actually invited me in their house. It's crazy. It's way different when you get invited into somebody's home to hang out with them than if you're just like meeting at a restaurant and stuff. Right. That's all great and understandable. But when they let you in and you're just hanging together and I guess let's just say authentic, you're in your comfort zone.
Right.
There's something healing about that,
Oh, yeah.
And so it's things like that. It's when I can't even say that it's all happy moments. I said laughing with a friend, but just when I am connecting.
When it's just you're with someone else and it's not about you.
It's not about me.
Right.
And it's when I am this body that I've been finding fault with.
Right.
When this house I've been finding fault with.
Right.
With my competency that I've been finding fault with, when I'm not just staring at it, instead I'm getting up and I'm going out and I'm using this body to love others. I'm using this body to connect. I'm using this house to have somebody in and to lay their cares down. Yeah. And I get my eyes off of, and current culture is going to say, well, you're just avoiding.
Oh yeah.
Because current culture tells you if you can't sit still and stare at it and be okay with it,
right,
then you haven't truly accepted it.
Right, exactly.
And then I'm over here like, well, I'm going to go out and do and be.
Yeah.
And actually, I.
Right. And I think there's certainly an aspect of customization here, right? Where like maybe situationally dependent, you need to be sitting with something. But I think it was this last weekend, we'd had a really, really hard week in my family. And I was getting in the car actually on the way to church. And I had the thought like, I do not want to think about myself anymore. I'm so tired thinking about myself and how hard the situation is and what's going on. I'm so tired of it. And then we went to church and we had like enjoyed corporate worship, which to me is when I feel like I am most like, oh, this will be heaven. Like it is.
Yeah. Can we just do this all day long?
I was like, this is what heaven is.
Because I'm going to assume everybody is pitch perfect.
Yeah. Oh, presumably, hopefully poor everyone who sits next to me. And I say that as someone who has like really, really dealt with really hard anxiety going into church, dealt with a lot of like undoing some ideas about it and stuff, and still knowing that when I go in and I'm like walking into a situation where, at least for me, I know this is where like the Lord wants me to be with other people, that is when it all like, it's gone. It's an ice cube on a griddle. It's over.
You know how we all say, do more things that make you forget your phone.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, do more things that make you forget your waistline. Do more things that make you forget the laundry's not done. Do more things that, it's we act like this is the epitome of what's important in life.
Right.
And I'm like, well, do I really want at the end of my days to look back and go, I didn't do that because the dishes weren't done and I didn't have them over. I didn't do that because that was not like my favorite body day or however we want to term that. I didn't do all that because of these, what at that point will probably seem so insignificant. It's putting it, I have to frame it that way in my mind. Do you really later want to say, I did not do this because of fill in the blank?
Right.
And if at that point, if you envision it that way and you're like, it's just not going to matter then why is it mattering? Why does it matter now? So it's just this thing of surrendering whatever I think it's supposed to look like. Yeah. And going, Lord, what would you have it look like? And in all of this, this entire process, there's a sanctification that's happening.
Mhm.
Another S word, which is got this whole time. There's a sanctification that's happening.
Yeah.
Because this is a practice that you're going to do on a regular basis. This practice of intentionally seeking him, this practice of verbally putting on the armor of God and sorting it out and being willing to sit with the things that need to sit and being willing to let go of the things that lined up. Just like, okay, I'm done with you. Stop. I'm not thinking about you anymore. You know, and we surrender. And all of this, as we continue this practice, there's a sanctification that's happening.
Yeah.
And as that's happening, what I have found is this whole process doesn't happen so often. It needs to happen as often anymore.
You're right. Yeah.
You know, there are the voices that will shut up eventually.
Yeah.
If you keep going, you know what? I'm gonna subject you to the presence of God. And I'm gonna now put you through.
Yeah.
Can you get through the armor?
Yeah. I love it. I love it.
And I'm going to just go, oh, you tried again, but I'm going to surrender you.
Yeah.
Like, I've surrendered this.
Yeah.
Sorry if you want to try again, but I've surrendered. And you continually practice this.
Yeah.
You will find. I much prefer the moments that we just talked about. Like this intrusive thought little battle is just, I'm not enjoying this today.
Yeah.
I've got other things to do.
Yeah.
And I'd rather go hang with that friend. I'd rather go love this person. I'd rather, creating. You know, you are a painter. So talk about that for just a minute.
Oh yeah. Well, I've gotten in and out of the practice through my life, but it has been just in the last year where I've really started doing it. I do it full time pretty well now.
Yes.
Which is,
it's actually like a job.
It's actually a job, which is crazy. And I'm so grateful for it. And so it has kind of getting into that mode has been, it can be a challenge for me sometimes.
To make yourself actually go do it.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. And sometimes there's this quote by an author that I love. And she's a writer, but she always says, I don't like writing. I like having written.
Yeah.
And so sometimes I feel that way about painting. I'll say that. Like, it's not
like me. I don't like cleaning, but I like the clean house.
Yeah, exactly. But it is some of the most gratifying work. And it actually is, because I've like really tried to dedicate myself to it. In some ways it does sort of remind me of this journey of like intentionality of being like, there have been times before when I wasn't trying to do it for work where I'd start it and I'd get overwhelmed. I was like, well, that's not looking how I want it to. Like, I'll just stop. And then I would never go through it. But now that I'm trying to do it as a profession, I'm like, you have to kind of figure this out and you have to kind of stick with it. And so there's actually been quite a bit of, even though there's been so much joy, there's been quite a bit of discomfort because I've had to learn new skills. I've had to stick with certain commissions that did not go the way I wanted them to, and I had to redo some of them. Like, there's been actually an aspect of it that is not so much, hasn't been so much like, oh, I go and it's my happy place. Although that does absolutely happen. Yeah. But there's been some parts of it where like I go and I am working, and I am figuring something out, and I am praying a lot if it's not going well.
In that, whether it's actually like that happy place to go to, or whether you like really are stretching your mind and your abilities and having to learn things, do those intrusive thoughts come?
Oh no, that's a good point. Yeah, no.
I mean, does that when they?
No, they.
No, I get that there's a chance that thoughts could come about your abilities and stuff like that. But I'm saying the ones that you normally struggle with, does it silence them?
Yeah, a little bit. I think there's with abilities, there can be, that's the shame is the same voice sometimes. So that has in the past come in, but no, not so much anymore.
Well, what about your body?
About my
body image when you're painting?
I mean,
when you're creating
to do Instagram reels, so sometimes it does come up.
but in the actual
painting, no, it does not. No, it's really, it really does.
It's just for me, it's like finding those things. Again, we act like, oh my gosh, are we avoiding? No, because I've walked through the healing. I've done a lot of stuff. It's not that I've never stopped and look at the things that have made up pain and trauma, but it's like when I'm having one of those days, I'm like, what if I start creating? If I start putting my hands, to baking or doing something, or I go check on somebody that's going through something and doing that, I completely forget that my physical being exists. Yeah. It's no longer about me. It's getting my eyes off of me and onto, and so with your paintings, it so drives home the point of God designs us, he breaks the mold, and I can't imagine, but I can only try to imagine the value he holds to what he's created, how wonderful he thinks. You know, we look at our children. That's the only a small idea I can have to compare to what, you know, he sees us as I look at my children and they're one of a kind and they're beautiful. And I love all these amazing things about, you know, like, I look at them like, how could you possibly find fault with yourself? You know? But like your paintings, I mean, for me, in all sincerity, if I, you know, put one of those up on the wall, I'm gonna be like, I have an Anna Owens original. She did this. It's gorgeous. I have one here. I mean, I would display it. I would be, you know, I'm just saying. So you may look at your work and be like, you can find the fault in it. I'm gonna be like, oh, but I got an original Anna. You know what I'm saying? Like, to me, it's such a perfect example of how looking through our own lens. Oh yeah. You know, we just can find the fault. Oh yeah. Absolutely. But then but I'm like, so it's, how come I'm not going, God, you know, I look at Anna Owens and go, I have an original. People would come over like, oh, Anna Owens did this. It's so great. Why am I not going, oh, look, God did this. You know, we touched on this earlier, but how am I not going, oh, it's a one of a kind. You know what I'm saying? Like limited edition. Signed by the author, you know, I'm just like, why? It's so sad to me. It is heartbreaking to me that is actually how he intended for us to view ourselves. You know, we do it with his creation. Yeah. We go out and we look at mountains and beaches, whatever is our little happy place. We go out and we go, God, look what you did at sunsets and whatever else. But then we look at ourselves and go, look at what you did. Yeah. Yeah. You did this. Did I do this? Yeah. 12 Seasons of Oreos? And that is, you know, that is something we need to touch on when you said, did I do this? Yeah. We are responsible for caring for this. There are some things that, you know, okay, it was me that ate the 3 candy bars and the bag of potato chips as I binge watched an entire series, not season, series. Yeah. Yeah. Let's just be honest. Yeah. I'm not going to hold him responsible for that. There is that we have a responsibility. We're not, I don't want to portray that we're talking about, oh, just whatever happened. Yeah. We're like, oh God, what did you do? Right. You know, we're really touching on that.
We're stewards of our own.
We are stewards, but it still comes down to am I okay the way I am? Right. You know, is at the very core of my being, God, you made this. Yeah. In all of every aspect of it, you made this. There are times I take better care of it than the others, but just, am I good the way I am? Anna, I feel like we could stay here for days just talking about, there's such a wealth and a depth to this topic that we've talked a lot. We've had good thoughts, but man, we could just keep going. So I want to wrap it up just as a reminder for, you know, myself and anybody needs it. Get your battle plan. It may not look the same for everyone. Because those intrusive thoughts, they're going to come in all forms and fashions. You know, so S words, remember your S words, the ones we're supposed to say, seek, suit up, sort, surrender, and know through all of it that you're being sanctified. And so I can't wait to have you again. Installment of Anna number 2. But in the meantime, if anyone is interested in Anna's work, to check it out because it's beautiful, we will have her Instagram. You're on Instagram? Yes. And
mostly just Instagram.
Mostly Instagram. Okay, that'll be in our description. Just check it out. And we can't wait to see everybody again for episode 2 of Authenticity.